Without further ado now, I shall start to go through your regular digital news update. So first up on here, the CLC, the Construction Leadership Council, has created a digital network to drive transformation. The network is being headed by Anne Kemp, the chair of the UK BIM Alliance, together with Kevin Reeves and Mark Enzer. And as it says on the slide, we'll be looking at improving industry performance and export potential. Next up, we have there is a UK BIM Alliance campaign being launched, project called Back to BIM Basics. You may have seen actually in the last day or so again on social media calls for additional volunteers to help with this programme. What we're aiming to do with this is to collect together a whole set of short instructional videos and build towards virtual events answering what we believe are the 5 most common questions for businesses that are still looking to get into BIM. These questions are: what is BIM? Why adopt it? How do I implement it? What was the right software to use, possibly for my business? And how do I effectively manage my data? So those 5 key questions to try and get people to understand the very fundamental, the business basics, rather than necessarily all the terms and acronyms that you see on the image on the slide. Next up, interesting one in terms of what HS2 is doing, that they are using an application called BioSite for digital health and safety passports. So this is allowing them to understand the skills and the health and safety status of all of the workforce across sites. In particular, if people are moving from one project to another within HS2, they will still understand the health and safety, and could be a really useful tool in sort of building up that health and well-being side of the sort of whole life of an employee working on a site or moving to future sites with other organisations. So I think this could be a really interesting area to see developments. Next up, CITB published this report back end of last year, a challenge and an opportunity: artificial intelligence and automation in the construction industry. And whilst it talks about increasing adoption of artificial intelligence and automation, subjects that we've talked about in thinkBIM last year, it also reinforces the need for a future skills challenge that is coming about because of all this new technology that's being brought about. And talking of technology, a super smart contact lens. So Mojo Lens has been developed that literally is augmented reality in your eye, or on your eye, perhaps is a better term. So an amazing bit of technology. I have no idea how long a BioSafe battery lasts or how you plug it in to charge it or whatever, but this is the way that the technology is now being pushed, that rather than having to wear bulky headsets or even spectacles or whatever, that you just have an AR enabled contact lens. So there we are. Next up, National Digital Twin. Again, another subject for our conference last March, a year ago now. The Digital Framework Test Group, as part of CDBB, working with the National Digital Twin Programme, carried out a discussion with various private practice lawyers to sort out and understand what the issues around the legal implications of a national digital twin may be. And they had 4 main outcomes from their discussion that they think needs further work. 1 is governance, 2, early engagement, 3, interaction of stakeholders, and 4, IPR data and access. So key points there again, as we are slowly moving our way towards a new national digital twin, or a digital twin for that matter of any form, I guess. Moving to manufacturing and our theme for this afternoon, I'm not going to dwell on this one massively because I'm sure it will come up in the conversations with our speakers and the panelists later on. But if nothing else, a heads up of this is out and in the marketplace for review. But the proposed code for construction project information has now been published by the Construction Products Association's Marketing Integrity Group. And the consultation is available until the end of this month. Again, 5 criteria that they believe that needs to underlie the code in terms of understanding that data is trusted, trusted product and performance information must be one of these 5 criteria. It should be clear, accurate, up to date, accessible, and unambiguous. And I'm sure Sue is going to talk about some of those bits and pieces, but I hope I haven't stolen her thunder too much. Next up, bring this one to everybody's attention because I just think it's a really elegant solution, and we don't often necessarily see elegant solutions in the field of data perhaps, but this is another CDBB case study called Colouring London. And as it says on the slide, the problem is that whilst building stock is a massive asset for a city, you don't always know a huge amount of information about those assets or on a macro scale. So what they are aiming to do is to colour, and in this case the trial is being done across the City of London, all the buildings, and it's being done by a variety of techniques. So the image here actually shows examples of where they've got DEC certificates for the individual buildings, but it's also done by building age, it's done by building material and a whole load of other criteria. And it's an open source solution. So if you happen to be somebody who's living in London and that your street hasn't been done or your house hasn't been done or property or office, you can go in and you can add the data to actually populate that map. And I think it's a really nice open data solution that will build up a really interesting picture of the city and obviously could be applied to other cities as well. Moving now to work by the MTC, the Manufacturing Technology Centre in Coventry, and this is some robotic trials using this JCB excavator to understand where they need to put sensor technology, what they need to monitor in order to actually create robotic systems for installing equipment on site. What you might be able to see if you could look very carefully is that actually on the attachment arm of that excavator is a very small ring, and it's inside, or it's running along a piece of rope. So it's literally doing that fairground thing of trying to run the metal hoop along a metal wire without the sensor going off. So they're trying to get and understand how they can get the accuracy so that the machine, once it knows where it's sitting, knows where to place a material. The whiteboard is also to allow the attachment to then draw on the whiteboard. So again, some really fine-tuned motor skills that they need in order to be able to get a robot to install materials specifically on site. Next up, we have a report from the Construction Innovation Hub, again outlining the needs and the benefits of platform solutions. It builds upon various previous documents that have been published by CDBB and equally picks up, as it says in the notes here, around the requirements that the construction playbook again is pushing the route and the market down towards modern methods of construction, off-site fabrication and platform solutions. So those were my industry updates. There's now a couple of bits and pieces specifically in terms of UK BIM Alliance, as we are the home of the UK BIM Alliance for Yorkshire and Humber. There has been a large publication, or large publication of improved, updated or new guidance. And this is the full suite that's now been either amended or published as new documents. I'm not going to go through all the details because there's hundreds of pages of stuff there already, but it's all available on the ukbimframework.org website, all free to download and available for the marketplace to then use to help them to understand the growing intricacies of adopting the ISO 19650 suite of standards. And in addition, there is also the new national annex to ISO 19650 Part 2. If you bought the first one, you are able to download the second annex for free as part of the purchase from the first one. If you haven't, it's part of the ISO standard, which unfortunately is a paid for document. Okay, UK BIM Alliance events, next ones that are coming up. So on the 18th of March, BIM for Legal are holding a webinar around BIM in dispute resolution and expert advice. The 30th of March, we've got the next Building Smart UK and Ireland Assemble event. Also in the afternoon of the 30th is the next UK BIM Alliance Forum. On the 28th of April, our friends over at the UK BIM Alliance in Kent are holding an event, theme to be determined, but that date is a bookmark for all your diaries. And on the 12th of May, there is another BIM for Legal event around EIR templates for 4D BIM. All of those available on the UK BIM Alliance website. Go to the events page. The final bit from me. Now, this is a document that was published in 2014, but I only recently saw it, and I thought this was quite interesting in terms of, again, setting some context for our conversations today. So this document that was sponsored by Box, a software vendor, studied 5 industries, and 3 of them, well, the first one I was going to cover is financial services, and they created, again, these rather interesting charts where if you look carefully, you can see lots of little red nodes, you can see very few blue nodes in this diagram, but there are a few outliers around the edge, and then the thickness of lines representing the connectivity. And as it says, financial services, they're very centralized organizations with very structured information flows. All of this is happening internally. That's sort of representing one financial organization, the way it is operating. The next one that they looked at was manufacturing. Still quite a lot of internal organization, but not quite as centralized. There's a few more blue outliers of where they're talking to other organizations, but it isn't quite as good. And then, hey ho, we get to construction. And that is something that they believe is the similar representation. So very, very few internal links, lots of organizations outside of businesses. So that structure of lots of organizations involved in a project. But again, it sort of shows how the flow of information is actually much, much harder, perhaps in the construction sector, or we make it much harder in the construction sector compared to other markets. And if you're interested, that's on the Box's website under their blog pages. As it says, the page there, mapping the information economy. It's 7 years old now, but I still think it has some merit.